I'm Laura Ingraham. This is the Ingraham Angle from Washington tonight. Kamala's on the move.
Traveled our country meeting with our young leaders. By the way, I love Gen Z. I just love Gen Z.
Turns out Gen Z may not love her back. We're going to dig into the latest polls. Plus, her phony appeal to populism is not fooling anyone.
She's trying to say, elect me president, and I'll somehow do all of the things that I haven't done for the last 3.5 years.
And we'll take you inside Camp Kamala, the debate prep.
Madam Vice President, how is debate prep going?
Compelling. But first, her anti-freedom agenda. That's the focus of tonight's angle. All right, my friends, tonight, Trump's got the momentum. More Hispanic voters, more black men, more Asian Americans and independents are now willing to hear Republicans out on the big issues, where before they weren't. Now, remember, most are poorer after going on 4 years of Biden and Harris, and now many are left wondering, why am I a Democrat again?
The Democratic Party has been hijacked by radical extremists under the guise of being, quote, progressive. The party has really given in to these extremists who no longer care about the safety, well-being of children and women, literally pushing for sex changes for underage children.
At a time like this, the Democrats needed a candidate who could actually defend what her own party is doing and defend her own record and ideas. But with Kamala Harris, all they can do is play this tedious game of hide the ball. And today, the Harris campaign wouldn't answer a simple question about her supposed EV mandate walkback, dodging the matter, according to Axios. Again, she is not discussing policy because she's a nightmare off the cuff. It's not some game of 3D chess here. And also because her policies aren't popular, her campaign flacks decided to have her simply pretend that she's had a change of heart. Well, Harris's campaign has said she no longer supports many of her past progressive positions and has embraced more centrist stances on health care, immigration, gun control, and fracking, Axios reports. Well, centrist? Well, knowing what we know about her, that's just not at all credible. Because if you are in favor of using the power of the state to surveil and prosecute your political opponents, and if you can justify censoring those political opponents, whether through government pressure on social media companies or through straight-on intimidation, then, I hate to tell it to you, I hate to break it to you, you're a wild-eyed extremist, a committed, even if inarticulate, radical leftist. And that's what Kamala is. She hasn't even tried, by the way, to walk back her support back in 2019 for banning Trump from Twitter. And remember, he was the sitting U.S. president.
Here we have Donald Trump, who has 65 million Twitter followers. He and his account should be taken down. This is a matter of corporate responsibility. Twitter should be held accountable and shut down that site. It is a matter of safety and corporate accountability.
While running in the Democrat primary, she was fine with bullying social media companies that she saw as a threat to the Democrats' chances of winning in 2020. So what was the clear message? Don't even try to hide behind the right to free speech, because if you do, social media companies, the government hammer is going to come down.
There has to be a responsibility that is placed on these social media sites to understand their power. They are directly speaking to millions and millions of people without any level of oversight or regulation, and that has to stop.
Now, if she could, she would obviously be comfortable with something closer to the new Brazil model of dealing with free speech, which is basically just shut it down. A corrupt Brazilian Supreme Court agreed to block Elon Musk's X there nationwide. So the president is a left-wing thug. He's desperate to protect his own power by any means necessary, which would, yes, include arresting Mr. Musk himself or one of his in-country representatives, if X continued to try to operate without requested censorship by the government that it demanded. Now, the president vowed that Brazil was not obliged to put up with Musk's extreme right-wing ideology, the president of Brazil. Sometimes it's hard to tell. But naturally, American liberals who hate Musk and hate what he stands for, which is free speech, they're defending Brazil's actions.
If you want to operate in Brazil, you operate by their rules, and these are their rules. It's their country, and they are very worried about misinformation there. And a lot of tech companies are finally being held accountable for certain behaviors and practices.
Funny how behaviors and practices that are most offensive to them always seem to come from the other side of the political aisle. But isn't it reasonable to assume that as governments continue to fail their own people, and they are failing their own people worldwide, they fail to adhere to their wishes and to grow the standard of living of their own citizens, and when those people grow restless, that those same governments, rather than responding to the will of the voters, that they'll simply respond with censorship?
If Brazil can succeed in banning Twitter from the entire country, it will be replicated. This is the ultimate destination for this movement, where if they can't convince people to give up their own freedoms, to embrace censorship, they're going to start to take sites offline to prevent people from hearing opposing views.
And keep an eye on Europe, because as Newsweek noted today, its own regulatory landscape for social media platforms is becoming more stringent. Translation? It's becoming more hostile to free speech. Their Digital Services Act, the DSA, could be used to impose massive fines and even shut down Musk's X. Of course, authorities would cite concerns about online safety and the need for content moderation for justifying their censorship. The truth is, America increasingly stands alone in support of free speech. And yet, more often, Democrats see free speech as an impediment rather than a God-given right, an impediment to their agenda, to their grip on power. Now, remember, the Angle warned you that when the federal bureaucracy cracked down against independent-minded doctors, like our own Ramin Osqui during COVID, they were seen as a threat to the medical-industrial complex ruled over by his lowness, Tony Fauci.
It can be dangerous to the health of the nation when disinformation dissuades people from making use of what could be life-saving interventions like vaccinations, wearing a mask, and abiding by good public health practices.
Should be in jail. Now, this was a harbinger of the anti-free speech forces at work in American politics. Of course, clever Democrat strategists that know that attacks on our free speech, they're not very popular. So they always deflect by dubbing Kamala Harris's plans as, well, that's the real freedom agenda. But now we see that their view of freedom only extends to a limited number of activities, like you have the freedom to abort your own offspring, you have the freedom to consume as much porn as you want, do as many drugs as you want, maybe gamble your life savings away, you can do all that. But they do not believe in the freedom of voters who have questions that they want answered. Voters who want to know what policies candidates are actually standing for. And Kamala's idea of freedom doesn't include the Second Amendment either. We know that. So if they can win this election with an empty pantsuit candidate who can't and won't discuss the issues, well, why won't they use the same playbook in 4 or 8 or 12 years? And at that point, would we even qualify as being a free country with free speech? And that's The Angle.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.